result of AIPAC or defense contractors bribing members of both parties across the political spectrum is that you end up with a uniparty. In fact, let's use the impending war with Iran as a perfect example to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Because here's Democratic Senator Mark Warner, who seems to be pretty supportive of going to war with Iran, a country that hasn't attacked us.
I think it's appropriate that the president has all the options on the table. But we saw when he has such a confusing foreign policy, we don't know what's going to happen. We know a month and a half ago, when the Iranian people were on the streets in massive numbers and the regime was so repressive, and he promised he was going to do something then. He couldn't do that then because we didn't have forces, because the aircraft carrier was off the coast of Venezuela on another military mission as opposed to being in the Eastern Mediterranean. If we were to take action against Iran, our ability to really put pressure on the regime, and the regime is awful, is really going to be undercut by the fact that our Europeans who have diplomatic relations with Iran, that have business relations, that could put more pressure on as well, I'm not sure they're going to be fully there because of their uncertainty about the president's overall foreign policy approach. Remember, the president said in our previous bombing that we had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. While clearly our military did an exquisite job, we did not obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Clearly the Iranian regime is horribly unpopular with the Iranian people. And gosh, seeing regime change would make sense.
Seeing regime change would make sense. Make no mistake about it, Democratic Senator Mark Warner is fully on board with a war against Iran. It's just that he doesn't want to give Trump credit, so he has to mix in criticism toward Trump while simultaneously supporting a military campaign against Iran.
In fact, his criticism was, why wasn't he ready to go to war earlier? Let me be clear. I despise corporate Democrats. And they are not our friends, they're not our allies, they're not our colleagues. So when I see people like AOC talking about, like, we have to be unified with our Democratic colleagues, those Democratic colleagues are sellouts. They will sell out to any corporation and any foreign government that bribes them. Mark Warner is one of the top sellouts. But to be fair to him, really, it's 95% of them are the same exact thing. They're all just robots off an assembly line. So look at this son of a bitch. While we're about to go into the most disastrous war in Iran, he's going, every military options have to be on the table. We should have gone to war earlier. I'm criticizing Donald Trump because he's not a big enough warmonger. Israel, have I done enough for you, Israel? Right? Why don't you go to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem? I'm so sick of these incredibly corrupt. Look, Israel is a country like any other country. If any other country had that kind of power, I think they would do very similar things. To be able to own the US Congress, control the US military, you kind of have to be crazy not to do it, right? So that's why I get angrier at our politicians and our media that have betrayed us. And so Mark Warner is betraying you there. And remember, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, Joe Biden all voted for the Iraq war.
Yep.
There's no difference in the Uniparty. They're all corrupt and they all work for their donors. They betray us on a daily basis. You should be furious with them.
Now, stylistically, you'll notice a difference, but substantively, take a look at Republican Senator Ted Cruz and explain to me whether there's any real difference in what they're pushing for.
We are at an extraordinary moment in history. It is entirely possible, Sean, that in the next 6 months, we will see the regimes fall in Iran, in Venezuela, and in Cuba. And we could also see governments replace them that want to be friends with the United States of America. Now, let me be clear. I'm not being Pollyannish about this. There are 1,000 things that can go wrong. But if that happens, this would be the most consequential geopolitical shift since the fall of the Berlin Wall, since America won the Cold War without firing a shot. I spoke with President Trump the day before yesterday, and we talked in particular about Iran. And I said, this moment, the regime is teetering. The Ayatollah is in his last days. And I said, do not let this opportunity pass.
Okay. What Ted Cruz said there about how we could do regime change, so the puppet government that we install in Iran will be friends with the United States. Okay, I want a single politician. Ted Cruz would be great if he would be willing to answer this question. Why do we have bad relations with Iran? In fact, during these negotiations, Iran said, we will make the concessions when it comes to, the enrichment of uranium, when it comes to, nuclear development or anything like that. We will definitely make concessions there. Let's have a conversation.
They even threw in oil concessions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They're like, how about we open up economic opportunities in Iran for the United States? We give you access to our oil. We give you access to mining. Okay, the only reason why we have a bad relationship with Iran is because of Israel. That's the only reason why. So what we're gonna do if Ted Cruz gets his way, if Israel gets his way, is regime change in Iran. We will pay for it, of course. We will risk the lives of our soldiers to do it, of course. For what? To benefit us here in the United States? No, of course not. But to benefit Israel so they can operate without anyone or any country hindering them from their main goal, which is expansionism, right? The Greater Israel Project. And as I reported on the show yesterday, if you pay attention to Israeli media, if you listen to their politicians, Naftali Bennett is the latest example, they're already planning for whatever war comes after Iran. And that war would be against Turkey.
And NATO ally.
Yeah.
So they're gonna force America to attack a NATO ally. Why do you think Trump has been battering NATO and the United Nations? Because Israel despises NATO and despises the United Nations. So they want to undermine their credibility, because how are you going to get Greater Israel? It's part of it is in Turkey without attacking NATO. So you have to say, oh, you know what, NATO's not important. You know what, get out of NATO, get out of all of your alliances, be isolated, be alone, and serve only Israel, and that'll help American interests. Nonsense. So first let me address Ted, and then I'll address the larger points. So now everybody online is calling him Tel Aviv Ted. And so if you're from the old school, if you're a normie who watches cable news, you're like, oh my God, that sounds like vaguely anti-Semitic. First of all, he's not Jewish, he's theoretically Christian. Second of all, he literally said to Tucker Carlson that the reason he went into the Senate was to serve Israel. So if that's not Tel Aviv Ted, what, I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. That should have ended his career. Imagine if some senator was like, I only went into the Senate to serve Paraguay. You'd be like, what? Why the hell did you do that? And you literally just told me you don't want to serve America, you want to serve a different country, so off you go. So, and then he said, this is gonna be difficult, but if he pulls it off, this is one of the greatest. It reminded me of Chris Matthews saying about George Bush, if he pulls off this democracy in Iraq, he should go on Mount Rushmore. And if you're saying, wait a minute, wasn't Chris Matthews on MSNBC and wasn't he a Democrat? No, it's all Uniparty. Chris Matthews made a living out of filleting Republicans and anyone going to war. And the mission accomplished landing, if you remember that, the banner, and it was like Bush's worst moment when he pretended that we had already won the war 2 months in. Chris Matthews said, he looks like a swaggering cowboy and he came off of a fighter jet. He's amazing, right? Because all of Washington is totally and utterly occupied by Israel, which then leads us to the substantive points. So Anna's right, we did this before. We got rid of their democratically elected leader back then, Mossadegh. We put in the Shah, and the people of Iran hated it so much it led to the Islamic Revolution.
That's true.
Right? So oh, we're helping the Iranians. Oh, we're helping the Middle East or stability. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna have an ally there forever. No, we're not, until the next revolution, and the next one will be even more radical. And then he said, we're gonna attack Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran. Do you remember any campaign ads from Donald Trump saying, now if you elect me, I will attack everyone across the globe. I will start 3 different wars at the same time. No, he said the exact opposite. But no matter who you vote for, you always get Israel. And why? Because of guys like Mark Warner and Ted Cruz, who have sworn an allegiance to Israel and will always serve them rather than our own country. And finally, so the US military forever has planned for and has been worried about a 2-front war. Can we handle a 2-front war? But before it seemed less likely, why would we get into a 2-front war? But now the moron, Donald Trump, trying to serve every single Israeli interest. It's like, oh, you guys didn't like that Venezuela was working with Iran. Okay, now we're in Venezuela. Now you guys, of course, Iran's your #1 enemy. So he's got our fleet spread out to Venezuela. And so let me ask you guys something. Let's say Iran's a mess, which is almost certainly will be. What's going to prevent the Venezuelans from going, you know what, we're not listening to you anymore?
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do? Okay, now you're going to invade Venezuela while you're in the middle of a gigantic war with Iran? Come on, this is so dumb.
I have to add one more thing. During the Gaza peace board meeting that took place today, something that really stood out and something that has really started to get under my skin is this mocking of the UK for allowing in Muslim immigrants, right? Oh, it's the Islamification of your country. Okay, so what exactly does the West think will happen as a result of this war against Iran, a country of 92 million people? What do they think is gonna happen? If you destabilize that country of 92 million people and people flee, where are they gonna go? And then you're gonna hear from the United States or European leaders whining about this. Maybe you should have maybe prevented this nonsense war because no one should be fighting it. If Israel stops trying to annex land from sovereign countries, then they don't have to worry about Iran or its proxies. But that's the thing, Israel wants to expand. So everyone else has to pay the price. Is Israel gonna take in any refugees? Israel pretends to care so much about the Iranians who want regime change. Are they gonna allow the Iranians into their country?
Anna, that's such a great idea, a great point. I never thought about that. They're like, we care so much about the Muslims protesting for peace. Oh, good news, you could release 5.5 million Palestinians that you kept basically as prisoners for 58 years. So they're the biggest liars in the world. There's a single person, I mean, you'd have to have an IQ in the 20s to think that Israel cares so much about the Muslim protesters in Iran. They're not doing it for their own interests.
No, not at all.
They're doing it to protect Muslim civilians. But look, I wanted to comment on what Anna said, the Muslimification of UK or America. Israel first making the argument that be careful, Muslims might take over. Dude, you already took over. Like, you think you're gonna trick people? Oh, Muslims have all the power in the White House and Congress and Israel doesn't? You'd have to be a mainstream media reporter to be that stupid. And let me just note that they constantly say things like that. The Muslim takeover, the Muslification. Imagine if you reversed it and you said, oh, don't let this country get Jewified. The Jewish takeover, the Jewification. Well, your career would be over instantly, and it should be. That's a terrible, terrible thing to say.
It's bigoted, it's hateful.
And those are the same exact people that if you criticize Israel 1%, will be like, oh, anti-Semitism. I care so much about bigotry, but the Muslims are dirty and we shouldn't let them in. Yeah, I got it. Israel can kiss my ass, okay? And so can all those politicians driving us into war and into bankruptcy to serve another country. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.